Well, hello everyone, Justyn Smith here, and I want to thank you so much for watching this video today. We are in the book of Matthew chapter 17, and we have an interesting topic today, lest we should offend them. Lest we should offend them. And you say, what are we dealing with in Matthew 17 that is going to talk about Jesus saying, hey, we don't want to offend them, so we want to do this, okay? I'm going to give you that answer here in just a second. What are we talking about? What are we dealing with? But first of all, my name is Justyn Smith with A Heart for Revival Ministries. This is a family ministry. We have the privilege and the honor of traveling together as a family, and we rejoice that we are able to do just that for the glory of God. Our ministry can be found online at aheartforrevival.com, and we would love it if you'd take the time to visit with us there. Now, as we consider this particular topic today in Matthew 17, lest we should offend them, we want to be challenged to not offend people. Now, this comes in many different ways, many different shapes and sizes can be the way that people offend other people. In this passage, Matthew 17, it's dealing with taxes. You say taxes? Yeah, it's dealing with tribute taxes. Now, you can consider in the scriptures the different types of taxes. People of God had taxes. They had the sanctuary or temple tax. You consider the taxes to the form of government, paying tribute to whom tribute is due. And as we look at this particular chapter in the scriptures, it's dealing with taxes, but it's dealing with, hey, we don't want to offend anybody in not paying taxes. So, Peter, we're going to pay taxes. Interesting topic, isn't it? Let's look at it as we begin. Number one, there is a question about Jesus and taxes. Again, the title is, Lest We Should Offend Them. So right from the very beginning, we need to understand Jesus does not want to offend those who do not believe him, so he is going to pay taxes. Something that we need to keep balanced in our mind is that Jesus didn't compromise in sin, but Jesus did feel the weight of the world as he lived this life. And so even when it comes down to the weight of taxes that we feel, I mean, we could, talk all day about how we don't like paying taxes. But in this passage, Jesus performs a miracle utilizing Peter following Jesus' command so that they can pay taxes and not offend those who came to ask Peter in the first place, doth not your master pay taxes? So let's look at the verses. It says this in Matthew 17, verse 24, and when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, doth not your master pay tribute? Now, I love in verse 25 how simply Peter answers the question, but yet doesn't volunteer too much information. He saith yes. He saith yes. And so that's what's going on in this passage. That's what starts this whole miracle to be, is tax collectors, tribute money collectors come and ask Peter, doth not your master pay tribute? Peter answers yes. Now, we need to consider how I mentioned earlier, even the people of God had a type of tax on them for the temple. Notice this in Exodus 30, verse 13, this they shall give every one that passeth among them that are numbered half a shekel after the shekel of the sanctuary. A shekel is 20 gerahs. A half shekel shall be the offering of the Lord. And that was something that was required of them. And every time you see this type of giving or command to give, it was for a purpose when it comes down to the sanctuary and the temple with the Jews in the Old Testament. Now, we also recognize in the Bible, not only do we find temple tax, but we also find just governmental tax like you and I have today. We understand biblically that in their day, just like our day, sometimes the taxes are a greater burden at different seasons throughout the years than at other times. Sometimes it's regionally, etc. And these are things that we don't exactly like to pay. I mean, when we stop and realize how much comes out of our paychecks, we're like, whoa, hang on, buddy. Wait a second. What if we didn't have those? But then there are the legitimate side of things that we look at in our community, like when they're actually taking care of the roads with the taxes that are given. Hey, that's a plus. You don't have to fix your tire again, or, the strut in the car or whatever, because you have money that has been put where money is needed. Now, again, we know that we can't always trust that money is going where it should be going. But nonetheless, Jesus addresses the question about himself and taxes when others came to Peter, one of Jesus' disciples. Doth not your master pay tribute? Peter says yes. Now, this goes on to point number 2. There is a parable that explains Jesus and taxes. Jesus is going to give this story to explain where he comes from and how he is about to address the fact that he is going to pay the taxes that are required of him. He, Jesus, is above all things. He really wouldn't have to pay taxes and be right in doing so because he is the owner of everything. But notice this in Matthew 17:25, where we left off. He, Peter, saith yes. And when he was come into the house, Jesus prevented him. So he stops him and he begins to ask Simon a question. What thinkest thou, Simon? What are you thinking? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? And I love this question because he is really trying to get the wheels in the mind of Peter to think, and then therefore he's going to take the answer that Peter gives and apply it to their situation. And God does this in our lives. Let's look at the question again. What thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Peter saith unto him, of strangers. Jesus saith unto him, then are the children free. Now, as we consider what Jesus is asking, okay, if you are a father of children and you are a father who also has this rule over a realm, are you going to require your children to pay taxes? Or will it be those who aren't your children, strangers? And Peter's like, well, the answer is the strangers. You're not going to require that of your children. They are underneath your own house. And that's when Jesus responds with, then are the children free. Okay, we are literally free, Jesus is saying, from paying this kind of tax. And there's people who consider that this type of tax that is being referred to, the tribute tax, is that temple tax, if you will. Now, as you consider the children being free, Jesus being, of course, the author of all things, he wouldn't have to pay these taxes because of who he is. But that leads to a third point, the wisdom to not offend those who don't understand that Jesus is found within how Jesus replies in the very next verse. Verse number 27, as we look at it, we are going to see Jesus doesn't want to offend over this. Okay, now a little bit later, you're going to see Jesus taking the tables of changers in the temple and overthrowing them because of how they've weakened and cheapened worship. Jesus wasn't afraid to offend in that point because they were doing something to harm the meaning of the Passover lamb. And so rightly judging the situation, Jesus is going to move forward in righteous indignation. But in this story, rightly discerning, giving wisdom to what is being dealt with at hand, Jesus is going to say these words in verse 27. Notwithstanding, okay, the children are free from this tribute money. Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea, cast in an hook, and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee. Okay, so Jesus, out of discernment and wisdom, begins to address the situation. He says, you know what? This is something that is really not necessary for us to do. Then are the children free because of who our Father is. And of course, Jesus, again, being the author of all things, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. he wouldn't have to do this. Hey, Peter, doth your master pay tribute money? And they're coming to collect. Peter's like, yeah, And then Jesus gets Peter to think, do we really have to do this? No. But we don't want to offend them. Therefore, with wisdom, to not offend those who don't understand Jesus, you could say those who don't know that he's the Messiah, those who don't recognize who he is as being, the one who has come to set them free. Jesus is like, I don't want to push them away. I don't want to offend them. And so then we notice this last thought, there is a miracle that provided taxes for Jesus and Peter. And very specifically, Peter is the one involved in this story. There are other disciples, right? And as Peter is the one involved in this story, I think it's interesting that Peter and Jesus are going to be cared for when those who come to Peter ask specifically about his master. Does your master pay these taxes? And so then Jesus goes in to say, hey, Peter, we don't want to offend them, so here's how we're going to do. Peter could be thinking, well, where are we going to get the money? We don't have this kind of money, Jesus. We're like nomads. The Son of Man hath nowhere to lay his head. And so we are going from place to place. And Lord, we just don't have that kind of money. Where are we going to get that kind of money from? And Jesus has the answer, and it's by way of a simple miracle. Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go to the sea, cast and hook, take up the fish that first cometh up, and when thou hast opened his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money. That take and give unto them for me and thee. And I think about this little miracle here. Hey, Peter, it doesn't matter what the fish looks like. It doesn't matter what kind of fish it is. If you go to the Middle East right now, specifically Israel, you will find that there are some restaurants. I've heard of at least one restaurant that sells Simon Peter's fish. Somebody that tasted it and tried it and told me about it said it was just the experience, okay? The fish didn't really taste that good. Now, I don't know. I hope that doesn't offend you if you've liked it. You know what I'm saying? Because different people have different tastes and likes when it comes down to especially fish. But that particular fish is known to see shiny things and gobble them up, to eat them, and then it holds them because it can't digest them. And so it is assumed that that is Simon Peter's fish from this particular story. And as you consider what Jesus says, regardless of that exact fish that you could eat right now in our day over in that restaurant, regardless if that was the fish or not, Jesus says, hey, whichever fish jumps on there first, that's the one you want. It's not going to matter about size, shape, or type. You take that fish, the first fish that bites, and you look inside of it. And when you look inside of it, you're going to find that there will be enough money to take care of taxes for both of us. And what a unique thing this is, because you know what? Peter left his net. Peter would have tax collectors on him all the time because of what it was that he was busy doing. And now he's left those nets. He's gone his way. He is serving the Lord. He does not have the income maybe that he used to have, as long as the fish were coming in. But Jesus is like, hey, how are we going to pay taxes? We don't have that kind of money. But then Jesus provides for them. And he's ultimately doing so to show Simon Peter that there are certain situations where we do not want to offend others who don't understand us. But we want to be able to continue to invest. And so, hey, let's not let that be a mark on our account, a scar on our face. Let's pay what is required of us to pay. Now, again, we need to receive this accordingly. We understand that taxes are a weight and a burden, and there are some taxes that just don't make sense in this life. And so I'm not sitting here trying to go to bat for those taxes that are coming upon you. I'm just saying Jesus approached this in a very different way than sometimes we might think he would. But yet in and through it all, we see that Jesus is the great provider for Peter, as well as the one who's not trying to push people away. He's trying to welcome them into the family. Jesus is going to deal with sin when sin is necessary to be dealt with. But at the same time, Jesus is wanting to see folks come to him in the faith, lest we should offend them. What a powerful message today, but what a simple message dealing with the topic, lest we should offend them. Let's just do the things that we know that we should do, give respect unto governmental authorities as we should, as long as it comes down to that point where it does not cause us to not obey God, as it would say in other places in the Scriptures, and let's be faithful where God has us to be faithful, that we may win folks to the name of Jesus Christ. Thank you for listening. Thank you for understanding, and may God bless you in a wonderful way today.